Alrighty, BJ the Brave here, and I am bringing you a video about the stats from July's horrible meta. The title here really says it all, doesn't it? A blue tide conquers July's meta. Now, I haven't actually read this. I am literally looking at this with you guys right now. This is my first reaction to it. So, as always, given a little reflection and whatnot, maybe I'll say some different things to what I'll say now, but you're going to get my live response to it. Alright, so one of the most competitive seasons of Warpforge to date has now ended. Well, what they mean by that is everybody got ridiculously high MMR scores because everyone played Ultramarines. With Calgar's Ultramarines taking the rank ladder by storm, and now that the dust has settled, it's time to dive into the stats and see how the picture has shifted. So, July saw a general decline in the popularity of the Tau Empire decks. No Sherlock. In favour of the Ultramarines. However, the latest reinforcement drop introduced into the game, the Kroot Hunting Pack, helped bring the Tau into the spotlight once again. The ranked ladder system just got a huge revamp. Are you ready to face the new season? Blah, blah, blah. Ooh, that's a nice picture. I like that. I'm going to have to use that. Although I'm saying that, I don't anticipate playing any Tigerius decks anytime soon. But I do like that artwork. That's a nice thumbnail. Anyway. Faction performance. So this is the overall win rate from all the kind of different divisions and ranks and stuff. Okay, so it looks like we have got the Ultramarines, obviously. These ones are usually a little bit more even, right? Because it's kind of like all levels and all collections and things like that. So, but even there, the Ultramarines come out on top. And it looks like the Orkz actually were the worst. No, Sisters were the worst again, and then the Orkz. That surprises me a little bit, to be honest. But, yeah, it is what it is. Now, the user rate, interestingly, we saw a 27% user rate of Ultramarines. That's the first time, I believe, that Black Legion hasn't been the most popular. So that's incredible. That really does show you what impact the Marines had. Black Legion still coming in at second. And the Tau Empire, pretty high. And that kind of, I guess, makes sense, given that we had a reinforcement drop. People wanting to play Tau in the raid and, play new cards and stuff like that. Okay, so now let's look at the Legendary division. So, Legendary tells a different story. Orkz are not the second to bottom anymore. Instead, they are actually third, are they? Is that right? Yep, so we got the Ultramarines at 57.92. Then you've got Tyranids, and then you've got the Orkz. Which is right, because I had Tigerius as tier 1, and then I had Gruk and Swarmlord as tier 2. Pretty much everything else was tier 3 or 4. So, the only thing about this, what I would say immediately, is this is misleading because what it doesn't show you is, it doesn't take into account, is mirror matches. Now, if you consider the fact that we already know Ultramarines dominated the play rate, how many times did Ultramarines play against Ultramarines? If you took out the mirror matches, my god. Anyway, that'll be more specific when we look at the Warlords. But again, massive. Look at that, 35% user rate. I think that might be, at Legendary, the highest imbalance of player rate we've ever seen. And you just watch next season with the new rank system where people play 4 factions. It's going to be so much better, so much variety in who you play against and what you play against. So even if there is another Ultramarine super strong broken deck, you're going to get a more varied player rate, and that can only be good for the game. Right, let's look at the Warlord performance. Okay, nice, they put this in order for us. So, in just terms of all ranks, it looks like Swarmlord actually managed to top Tigerius on win rate, which is really impressive. I knew Swarmlord would be up there, but I am surprised it beat Tigerius. I do think that people knew that Ultramarines were very, very powerful. They played things like the Predators, but they probably didn't know how to play the deck optimally, and they probably didn't know what the optimal deck was, whereas obviously the top Legendary players did. So yeah, really interesting to see. Well done, Swarmlord. Was very, very strong last season, and coming in at a ridiculously high rate. Marneus, very, very close to Tigerius, which I knew Marneus and Letharius were going to have high rates. I didn't realise they'd be that close to Tigerius, so that's kind of interesting. In terms of play rate, we see like Varro smashing it, right? Absolutely smashing it. And again, if you put those Marines together, that's 3 Marines in the top 5 for play rate. Something like that. Crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Ghazghkull doing well. Outside of the Ultramarines was the next one. And Abaddon down. Imhotep did a bit better than I thought. And Junif, for the first time, we have a Sisters Warlord getting over 50%. Again, this is not legendary. This is kind of like all levels. So that's kind of good to see, I guess. Getting towards the bottom, we've got the Warshaper propping up the bottom along with Tervagon. And Erica still very, very low down. And Gruk actually not far above. Even below Zagstruck. And that is actually really, really interesting because I felt like Gruk was very powerful towards the end of last season. But again, there's lots of different ways you can play him. And people have got to learn that. And they've got to have the right deck and etc. etc. Let's check out the Legendary Division. This is the one I always look to. This is the one that really tells me what the meta is. Or at least informs that. And as you would expect, when you got to the Legendary Division, Tigerius was smashing it. And again, 62.4% does not take into account the fact that we had, look at that play rate. So a much bigger play rate of Tigerius, and that means lots of Tigerius versus Tigerius matches, and that means someone loses, which pulls the win rate down. So I really feel like what you should take away from that is that Tigerius was ridiculously powerful last season, way more than that. When Uriel was the top of the meta, by the way, just for reference, he just crept over the 60%, right? So Tigerius has got a 62.4% with a much higher player rate, meaning there's more mirror matches. If you took the mirror matches out, this would be way over 70. Absolutely smashed it, did Varro. But again, Swarmlord doing really well. Gazgul doing really well, and look what I said about Gruk. Gruk is right up there in the legendary ranks where people realised how to play. Gruk was very much a prey deck on Tigerius. I think I certainly had a positive win rate against Tigerius whenever I ran Gruk. Did really, really well. And Calgar obviously was like a slightly worse version of Tigerius, but still had a very good positive win rate as well. Now, what does surprise me is that Gordrang was so high. That is absolutely unbelievable. The only thing that doesn't is I did see, I think what people caught on to is that despite the nerf to the stun, when people saw what people were doing with Gruk, you know, having a 4 damage dealing Warlord that you can play with Makari and Warbikers and proper killer still gives you a ridiculous like reach for finishing the game. So Gordrang is still powerful actually, and these stats kind of show that. So it looks like Galen was actually the best out of the Eldar. And Lotharius in the Broken faction still posting a high score, although not quite as high as the other two. Tervagon much better than he was in the all ranks. Obviously at Legendary people know how to play it. Junith not quite as high at Legendary, but still managing to scrape over that 50% mark. Zephyrblade dropping. Zephyblade's been at around 55, 56 the last few months, but dropping in success rates. God, look at that play rate of Calgar and Tigerius. What was Abaddon's play rate? 8%. You're right. So Abaddon and Harken are usually the highest, and look how much lower they are. Not a legendary, sorry. Harken's not the highest. Abaddon is, but not last season. Not last season at all. What else is interesting? Let's have a look. So Uriel, even with the Broken faction, you know, really hurting from lack of card draw, and yeah, not even getting over 50%. Imhotep down. Omesos down. Keltok obviously down. Shadow so badly down last season. Perhaps it's time to fix that offense card. And Warshaper right at the bottom. Warshaper not doing well, not out of the blocks to a good start at all. Obviously that probably accounts for the reason why it got a bit of a buff. And Orican and Zandrek really struggling as well, and that perhaps explains why we saw some buffs this season to kind of try and help them. Still very, very sad to see Erica and Morven suffering, struggling, but that is the life of a sister. Draft mode, there you go. Not going to go into it too much. Don't really play draft, but looks like Calgar and Omesos and are the best. So yeah, yeah. So that was it. That was the meta. I am very, very glad. I enjoyed last season, guys. Like, I'm a seasoned card game player, and I realise that if you play a card game, you've got to be in for it. You've got to realise there are going to be tough seasons. There are going to be seasons where the meta is different. And when you have a season like last season, what I tried to do, and what I did do, is set myself like a two-pronged approach in order to enjoy it, right? So one is make decks that prey on the meta. We know that Tigerius is going to basically have a high play rate, so just make decks that can challenge it and like make that part of the fun of how can I topple the best deck. That's what I did with Gruk. That's what I did with Swarmlord. and that's where you can see, like here, look at these win rates that even in the Legendary division, we can see that Swarmlord and Gruk actually had pretty high win rates. And Ghazghkull earlier season, I was doing that as well. So they were literally the three. So they proved my point that they were the prey units into Tigurius. And then the other thing you can do is just learn Tigurius, right? So I also did that, right? So you but I mean really learn it, like master the deck, master the mirror matches. And if you do that and you're wielding a powerful deck, and then you also play prey decks into the powerful deck, you can still have fun. So that's what last season was. But that said, I'm really glad it's finished. And this season's completely different ball game. I'm absolutely loving it. I've already played 20 games with Tyranids. I'm now almost 20 games in with the Eldar. And I'm going to run 20 games with 5 or 6 factions. I'm going to stream all, I'm going to record all that stuff and put it out there. So go and check my channel out if you haven't seen that. Then I'll see where I'm at after 20 games, and then I'm going to really drill down. But the point is that this season we're going to get a lot more variety, with the Ultramarines being nerfed, and with the new ladder system dictating that people bring a bit more variety. So there we go, guys. That's the meta report for July. And until the next one, I'll take it easy. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe, and all that jazz. Ciao.